Hello and welcome back to my channel. It's been a good week, but before I give you the results for my weight today, I'm actually going to talk about what I did this week. Started the week on my 1A to B 11 sin plan and stuck to that every day this week except for Wednesday. Now on Wednesday I allowed myself a day of making wise choices, but eating what I wanted. Now, I'm going to ask Jo in a moment to share with you what I chose to eat on Wednesday evening when we were out. But firstly, I want to talk about my behaviour and what I would have done before Slimming World. In the days before Slimming World, we ate out regularly and we ate at some basic restaurants and some greasy spoon cafes and some mainstream pub restaurants, you know, your Witherspoons and such places, Toby Carveries and whatever. And we also ate in some really exclusive restaurants because my parents-in-law were very kind and very generous people and took us to some amazing places. So my taste for food is wide and varied. I like everything from a good fry up to the best of the best a la carte food. When I chose to go out for my birthday, I looked back on some of the places I've been to in the area that we live in, and I chose a restaurant called Perkins Bistro, which has been a favourite of mine for a long time. But it's not a place we go to regularly anymore. Anyway, I chose to go there, and then we looked at the menu, and yeah, very pleasing. The old me, who used to eat at Perkins, would have eaten everything on the table, whether it actually was mine or not. If you'd left something, I'd have finished it for you. If we'd had any kind of bread on the table, I'd have demolished the lot, whether you needed any or not. If we'd had any little dishes of butter on the table, I'd have used it all up. I always exhibited extremely greedy behaviour. That's how I got to be 22 stone. You know, that doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't happen because you have 1 or 2 extra shortbread biscuits with your coffee. I am, by nature, and I say I am because I still am, by nature, a very greedy person. I don't know whether I was born that way, whether it's learned behaviour or whatever, but it's the truth. I am an extremely greedy person.
When it comes to food.
When it comes to food. I'm not so greedy around other things, but when it comes to food, I am extremely greedy. So, the old me would have gone out for dinner with friends. There was 8 of us went out on Wednesday night, and I would have cleaned up that table. So, for example, the lady who sat next to me left some of her main course because she was full. I'd have finished that. The little girl who sat opposite me left half of her main course because she was full, because she'd had a big starter. I'd have finished that. Joe had a bowl of chips and he had truffle mayonnaise. I love truffle, and I don't mean the chocolate kind. He had truffle mayonnaise. I would have demolished his chips for him, even though I'm not particularly a chip person. But if you can dip a chip into truffle mayonnaise, you're in paradise. I would have also finished off the bowl of mayonnaise, which I don't think Joe did, because he's not like me. There was a plate of focaccia bread, homemade focaccia bread with chilli in it. I was the last person to choose to have any of that. I chose a small piece. The old me would have eaten half that plateful, irrespective of whether there was enough for everybody else. At the end of the meal, when we had coffee, there was plates of little homemade Florentine biscuits. I'd have demolished all of those. I didn't even reach for one. My habits have changed. My personality hasn't. The propensity to greed is still there, but it's whether I'm in control of it or it's in control of me today. And thank God, because of Slimming World and new habits, new learned behaviours, I am in control of my greed today. So I'm going to share with you what I chose to eat. But first of all, I'm going to tell you what I'd eaten earlier in the day. This is laughable. A friend gave me, as part of my birthday present, a bag of M&M peanut butter. candies. Now this is a regular thing. She buys them me at Christmas and at Easter and on my birthday. It's always part of my presents. And I had said to her, can these bags get smaller? So bless her, this time she bought me a smaller bag. 3 o'clock in the morning on Wednesday, I was wide awake. I don't know why. I'd been reading a good murder book on my audiobooks and I could not sleep. So I sat up in bed and I ate my peanut butter M&Ms. Now, you think, gosh, what a start to the day. But it was all right, because I was in control. I only had the one bag. I could only eat them once. And I might as well eat them at 3 o'clock in the morning and enjoy them as not. So that's what I did first of all. I then got up at 7. I had my normal breakfast at 7:30. We had a funeral to go to on Wednesday morning, and we went, and I said to my friend afterwards, it was her mum's funeral, and I said, it sounds very strange, but that was the nicest funeral I've ever been to. Really, really lovely. But the family invited us afterwards to go on to the wake, and I knew, because of the lovely, generous people that they are, that that wake, or whatever you want to call it, gathering after the funeral, would be full of fabulous food. Now, it was my birthday, I had other things to do, so I gave my apologies, paid my respects, and we came home. I knew, for the type of person I am, and that style of buffet food, and the quality of food it would have been, wasn't the best place for me to be. So we came home, we had a quick bite of lunch. I think I had sushi and fruit. We put our walking shoes on and we went for a 7-mile walk. That was a better thing for me to do than sit around eating lovely, luscious buffet food for a couple of hours. Came back from the walk, did a few bits I needed to do, got a shower, got dolled up, and went out for the evening. Right, all in control. No, oh God, it's my birthday, I can have this, I can have that. Oh, I've missed one thing. Lovely friend who sent me flowers. The flowers also contained a bag of luxury large chocolate buttons, 50 grams. I chose to eat those when I got back from my walk. That was fine. I was in control. Just the one portion. So all in all, on my birthday, I was totally in control of what I was doing around food. I had looked online at the menu for the meal in the evening and I'd made tentative choices. So in my head, I'd got a couple of choices for each course and decided to go with what I felt like when I was sitting at the table. So when we got there, we all studied the menu and I chose for my main course, no, for my starter first, sorry. I chose for my starter, Joe?
Tian of fresh chroma crab, heritage tomatoes and guacamole.
Now this was delicious. But you know when you go to a higher class restaurant, the higher class the restaurant, the smaller the portions, I find. And the food is a work of art, absolute work of art. But you're never going to get fat on it. Because it seems to me these days, the more you pay, the better quality of the food, the smaller the portion. You don't need to worry about portion control. They do it for you. So that starter was awesome, but it was fine. I chose to have one small piece of focaccia bread. I chose not to plaster it with butter, which is very unusual for me, because I used to like bread as a vehicle for my butter. So that was all fine. For my main course, I chose to have, Joe?
Taste of pork. Fillet, slow roast belly and black pudding fritter served with a caramelised apple, mashed potato, smokehouse bacon cabbage and a Calvados sauce.
Now that was lovely. The fillet of pork was beautiful. The pork belly was 2 inches square. You know, you think when you think belly pork, don't you? Big strips, big rashers. It was 2 inches square. It was just lush. The food was absolutely lush. I mean, you couldn't imagine they can get so many flavours into pork. And the caramelised apple. It wasn't an apple, it was a slice of apple. And the mash and the cabbage, they're quite small portions of perfect food. There's no way I was going to get fat on that. I don't know how many Syns it was. I didn't even consider how many Syns it was. But with that size portion, I'm fine. I'm in control. And I didn't polish off anybody else's. I just ate my own. Then, I don't need to ask Joe to remind me what I had for dessert. I can remember that well. The dessert menu came and it was luscious. And now I had told myself if there was a creme brulee on it, I was having creme brulee because that's my favourite. There wasn't. There was a homemade rice pudding creme brulee, but that didn't ring my bells. So I opted for cornflake tart. Now, does anybody else remember cornflake tart from school dinners? Well, cornflake tart was my favourite school pudding, right? And I went to a tiny school with fabulous food. I think that might have been one of the places I got my liking for lots of food. But this was cornflake tart and then some. Ew. I laughingly said to the waiter, "It's my birthday, make sure it's a decent sized portion." And he did, bless him. And they'd even written on my plate in, I don't know what, some sort of sauce, "Happy birthday." But it was a portion probably 4 inches square.
It was a deep dish, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a deep portion because you've got your pastry, your jam, your cornflakes, whatever. And then there was a vanilla custard sauce to go on it, which came in the smallest of small jugs you've ever seen. It was like a tablespoon. But it was delicious. And it was enough. But the old me would have wanted 3 times that much and a pint jug of sauce. So I know I'm changing because I found all of this so satisfying without being excessive in the portion sizes. Right, Joe, being the kind of eater he is, had the same starter as me, didn't he, Joe? And then he had fillet steak. So, and he doesn't go for puddings, he's not a sugar person. So he had a thoroughly nice meal and everything. It was delicious. The whole meal was delicious. Then at the end of the meal, as I say, there were Florentine biscuits and everything. I had a coffee. I did not reach for a biscuit. It didn't even enter my head that they were for me. Because the old me would have demolished the plate. Sod you if you'd wanted one, you wouldn't have got one. I'd have demolished the plate full. So my behaviours have seriously changed. And I don't have to make conscious decisions not to do these things. It just doesn't come into my head anymore. Then they brought the birthday cake to the table and my dear friend Liz had made me a dark chocolate and beetroot cake because it's my favourite. And I tried to persuade everybody to cut it at the table and have some, but everybody was full and we brought it home with us. Now I am going to be perfectly honest with you. It was a 7-inch sponge, you know, the standard 7-inch sponge. I had a quarter of it that night before I went to bed. Now that might seem greedy, but think about it. A quarter of a 7-inch cake. The old me would have eaten the whole cake without batting an eyelid. So you can either consider it as learned behaviour, new habits, or you can consider it as damage limitation. But I was in control. And the old me would not have hesitated to eat the whole cake. I would not have been embarrassed to eat the whole cake in front of Joe because I knew he didn't want any. And nobody would have ever queried it or questioned it or even known. But what I did then, or what Joe did, we wrapped up a quarter of the cake to take to a friend's house the next day. And we wrapped up the other half for Richard because he likes a good cake as well. Job done. End of day. Midnight, time for bed. I got up the next morning and I went right back to what I always do. This week it's 1A, 2Bs, 11 Syns. I didn't think about having more Syns. And better than that, I didn't think about having less Syns to try and make up for what I'd had the day before, because that doesn't work for me. It really doesn't work. I have to start the day and do the plan. I can't mess around with the maths of Syns and healthy extras and paying back for this and making up for that and clawing this back and compensating for that, because that just sends my head doolally. So I had a great birthday. I ate what I liked, but I was in control. And that is a feeling of such freedom that I never ever experienced before. That's the first birthday, I think, in my whole life that food hasn't been in control of me. And that's because of what I've learned on Slimming World. I just want to say a quick thank you for everybody who sent me birthday wishes. It's probably the first time I won't be answering all of the comments on a vlog. But we just Joe just doesn't have time to do it all. And I haven't got to grips with my iPad keyboard yet. So any questions that arise on the vlogs will get answered. But just one overall thank you to everybody who sent me birthday wishes. It was greatly appreciated. Well, it is greatly appreciated. So yeah, that's an end to the birthday. We don't want many more of those, do we? Not now I'm 60. My goodness, I think I should start going backwards. Just want to bring a couple
Have
of...
you shared your result?
Oh no, completely forgot. Right, mileage for the week, 47.46. Weight result for the week, I got to maintain. And I am thrilled with that. And I'll tell you why. I got up this morning, I put my gear on for Slimming World, and I said to Joe, I can tell I've put weight on, feel it in my clothes. You know what it's like when you've washed your clothes, you know, don't they always feel a bit tighter? I walked into the Slimming World group this morning and Joe said to me, if you're worried about gaining weight, just tell yourself you've gained 10 pounds. Anything less than that will be a bonus. We walked in, I got on the scales, and Angie said, you've got to maintain. And I was more than pleased. And it is probably a better result than I actually deserve. To be fair, last week I gained I gained £1.5 pounds, didn't I? And that wasn't a deserved gain. Well, the people have talked about that this week. There have been some undeserved gains, but I hope that they too have had a good result today. So, last week I gained £1.5 pounds, which felt undeserved, but was okay because it took me to the bottom end of my target. This week I've maintained, so I'm still £3 under target at 10 stone 4. Thanks, Joe. See, I go off at a tangent, don't I? Couple of products of the week. Firstly, these. Sweet and crunchy pickled onions in balsamic vinegar. I haven't tried them yet, but I'm going to have some with my lunch. I think these will be nice. I love pickled onions, but this is just a bit different. A bit more taste, a bit more class, I was going to say, but that's not right, is it? They're just onions. Just something a bit more special about these. I like plain pickled onions of every kind, but I think these could be a bit special. And these are from Waitrose. £1.88. I don't know, are they Waitrose own brand, Joe?
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, I was going to say, you'll be able to buy them in other places because other supermarkets will do their own brand, I'm sure. But we found those in Waitrose. My other product this week is something I'm going to have... That way?
Other side.
That way.
Yeah.
Something I'm going to have with my lunch one day this week, and these are... Now, I say pui lentils, but it could be poi lentils, in sun-dried tomatoes with basil. These are, the whole pouch, which is 250 grams, is 3.5 Syns. That's the kind of like little interesting dish that I would replace meat with, or fish. So I'd have this as a vegetarian meal, and that would be the part of my meal. That would be maybe where you'd put your fish or your meat. So I think they're worth a try. I think they'll be tasty. And they were, I think, about £1.60. They're in the shopping haul that Joe is currently filming for the next 7 days of Slimming World shopping, and it should be up next Wednesday. My word for the week this week is synergy, and I'd like to ask Joe to just read a simple definition of the word.
The interaction or cooperation of two or more organisations, substances or other agents to produce a combined effect greater than the sum of their separate effects.
Thanks, Joe. Now I like that because it helps me to understand that the Syns, with a Y, part of my food plan, adds together with the free food, the speed food and the healthy extras to make this plan work. Now I don't understand the science of it. I don't even need to think about trying to understand the science of it. But what I have been doing lately is looking at what I use my Syns for and why. When I first came to the plan in May last year, I used to look at having 15 Syns a day, which worked for me for a good long time in my weight loss. I think it was only about 3 or 4 weeks before I actually got to target that I dropped my Syns. But my 15 Syns a day had to give me that buzz, right? The free food, the speed food, the healthy extras were good and normal, but the 15 Syns were what I used to feed my habit.
And feel naughty.
And feel naughty. And by feed my habit, I mean I needed sugar, I needed fat, and I needed salt. And they were the three main components of my food choices before I ever came to this plan. I've talked many times about my chocolate, my pork pie. So I was always looking for sugar, I was always looking for salt, and I was always looking for fat. So consequently, I spent my sins on things like chocolate, biscuits, cheesy things, anything that had cheese in, salt in. Tuck biscuits. Now, I love tuck biscuits, but I didn't realise I was eating them because of the fat and the salt content. There's no nutritional content really there. They're, refined carbohydrates. It wasn't actually giving my body anything. And I think what Joe's helped me to see lately is it's better for me to be putting things into my body that give me something back. Because if I put food into my body that's nutritionally dead, it takes from my body, in that it takes minerals, nutrients, whatever, from my body to digest these foods, but it doesn't pay me back with anything. It's just dead calories, really. If that's my best understanding of it. Might not be actually factually totally perfect, but that's my simple understanding of it. So when I was using 15 Syns, which is 1/4 of my plan of eating, to actually still feed my old bad habits of wanting sugar, fat and salt, the food that I was choosing to put into my body, which was made up of those Syns, was dead food generally. Now, it's taken me 16 or 17 months to evolve what I spend my Syns on. And I still choose, on occasions, to have tuck biscuits or chocolate, or I like fig biscuits. But I don't do that every day now. In the early days of Slimming World, I was doing that every day. I was not balancing it out and using some of my Syns with a Y on something that added something to my food, something that added something good to my nutrition. I was generally using my Syns as if they had an I, as something to give me the buzz that I was still looking for from being a compulsive overeater. Now, I'm not saying this is what you're doing. I'm not judging anybody here. I'm not accusing anybody of doing this. I'm only telling you what I did. I don't want to get into debates over, she's judging me, she's saying I eat chocolate, I eat biscuits, I eat crisps, whatever. I'm not doing that at all. A, that's none of my business. B, it doesn't affect my life what you eat. And C, the only person I can talk about is me, because that's the only experience I know and understand. And I know now and I understand now that that is exactly what I was doing. Just so much as I know that I am still a greedy person. I know myself better than I know anybody else on this planet. I know the way my mind works, and all of this dieting mentality, healthy eating mentality, whatever we call it, it all begins in the mind. I'm a great one for having a good idea and acting on it temporarily. So I'd find a diet that I thought was a quick fix, the way I used to find Slimming World, and adapt it to my way of working, and it worked for a fortnight and then it let me down. What I have to do for me today is stick to plan. I'm a typical Virgo. I like rules, I like boundaries. I follow plan to the letter. That wouldn't work for everybody. You're not all like me. Doesn't mean I'm wrong, doesn't mean you're right. It means that we have a choice today. So when I look at what I spend my Syns on today, I am trying with very little effort to make the best choices for my body, because this is the only body I inhabit. And this body needs to last me, hopefully for the next 20 years. So yesterday I chose to spend my 11 Syns on a peanut naked bar for 8 Syns, vegetable sushi for 1 Syn, and 133 mils of extra milk for 2 Syns. Today I'm going to show you what I'm going to spend my Syns on. I've got my good and trusty vegetable sushi from Waitrose. This is lovely. 134 grams and it's 1 Syn. And I don't know what it actually weighs. Oh yeah, I do. I just said so. 134 grams. See, my brain doesn't work even though my mouth does. It's weighty. You actually know you've had it. So that's one sin from my sins today. 2 sins from my sins today are going to be spent on this: 400 grams of vegetable pasta, deli style. Now this has got...
Deli salad, sorry.
Deli salad, sorry. This has got penne pasta, peas, sweet corn, which I know isn't speed, but it doesn't matter, peas are protein. It's got carrot, it's got salad leaves, and it's got a vinaigrette dressing. It's half a sin for 100 grams, so I can have the whole of this 400 gram pot for 2 sins, which I will do today. I don't eat that every day. I would only have that maximum once a week, because pasta doesn't suit me. White pasta doesn't suit me. It can bloat me, but I'm prepared to risk that once a week, once a fortnight. I wouldn't eat it every day. Variety, the spice of life. And then for my remaining 8 sins, I'm going to have these bakes, which are mixed seed, quinoa, carrot, and a minted pea centre, or something like that.
That's well remembered. Yeah, that's good.
So I do have a bit of a brain.
Yeah.
They're 8 sins for the 2. I thought about having 1, and then I thought, no, 2's fine. 2 of those is fine with some pickles and bits and bobs.
But they're like a perfect example of what we're talking about with the synergy rather than sinfulness, if you know what I mean. Because, like, pass them here for a second, sorry. The sins in these are going to be coming from things like chia seeds and flax seeds, aren't they?
Yeah.
Rather than sugar. So,
And
yeah.
refined carbohydrate.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks. So there's an example of the way I'm choosing to go today with my sins with a Y, because I want to get a balance to health, and I want to keep a balance to health, and I want to move further and further away from the old habits of sugar and fat and salt. I need to be very careful not to get obsessive about those things, because that's another one of my personality traits. I can be very obsessive about, over obsessive, shall we say. I'm trying to find healthy foods that suit my lifestyle without actually getting into the extreme, which it would be very easy for me to do. I am careful around a lot of foods. I'm particularly careful around meat. There are a lot of meats I choose not to eat today. I think this is more about my desire to be more, I don't like to use the word vegetarian, I'm not. I'm probably 80% vegetarian, for want of a better expression. I'm 80% of a vegetable eater rather than a big meat eater. That's down to taste and preference, but it's also down to, like, different things I learn about different people. I mean, my brother has poultry and grows all his own veg and has polytunnels and is very clever with healthy food and stuff, because that's just the way he is. It's not his job, it's his hobby, I suppose. Now, when my brother has eggs and says to me, do you want some of my eggs? I'm a bit like, go on then, they're free range. But I am weird about where I'll buy things like eggs and chicken. I'll only buy free range eggs, and I'm not saying everybody has to, and it's not, because I'm a great passionate person about cruelty to animals. I wouldn't like to be cruel to human beings or animals. I'm not like that. But I can't allow myself to over obsess about it. But what I am careful about is buying certain meats and poultries and different things that I think have been pumped full of hormones, pumped full of antibiotics and stuff like that. I don't want to take that into my body today in case I ever need antibiotics. It doesn't do me any good to have a body full of them. And some people would say this is extreme thinking. That's fine, we're all entitled to an opinion. But I also don't buy cooked meats anymore, because I keep reading, the level of nitrates and this, that and the other. They're probably nothing. They're probably minuscule. But if it doesn't sit comfortably with my brain, it leads me to obsess. So I'm better to stay away from it. And because meat is such a small part of my diet, it's not an issue. If I want some ham today, I can buy a piece of ham from the butcher and I can cook it myself. So it's all evolving, isn't it? I don't expect to be eating the same food in a year's time that I'm eating today. I expect to have a more varied, more wide diet in a year's time than I have today, because I'm continually looking for new things, not only looking for new ways to use my Syns, but looking for new free foods, looking for new free foods, speed foods, and healthy extras. I'm open to anything. I like to try Asian food and Polish food and all these different things. You know, there's so much out there. Never needs to be a restrictive diet, never needs to be a boring diet. But for me, you know, a 1/4 part of this whole plan is my Syns. And I want to start focusing a little bit more on it and paying a little bit more respect to them, rather than just using them to feed my old, bad, sinful habits. So if that makes any sense to you, then you're probably a better man than I am, Gungadin. But I haven't confused myself. I know what I mean. Have a great week, all of you. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week. But remember, it really does work if you work it, and it really won't if you don't. Cheers. Bye.